Looks like we're live. Okay, good
Mm-hmm.
afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Alina Islam, and I'm a mining analyst here at Red Cloud Securities. I'm very pleased to introduce to you Bradda Lithium, a pure-play lithium company with projects in the U.S. spanning the full spectrum of lithium deposits, including brines, pegmatites, and clays. For the webinar with us, for the webinar today, we have with us Charles Fitzroy, CEO, and Ian Stalker, Non-Executive Chairman. Charles and Ian will provide an introduction to the company, including an overview of activities currently underway at its San Domingo and Basin projects. After the presentation, we'll take your questions live. Please send us your questions via the chat box, and we'll get through as many as we can. Before we get started, I do need to mention the disclosures. For Bradda Lithium, there may be some forward-looking statements made on this call. I would direct listeners to the cautionary note on page 2 of the Bradda corporate presentation located on the company's website. For Red Cloud Securities, I would highlight that this webinar is for information purposes only and should not be considered a solicitation to purchase or sell securities or a recommendation to buy or sell securities. We note that this call does not take into account the particular situation or needs of individual investors. Participants should rely on their own investigations and seek their own professional advice before investment. Please see our most recent research located on our website for Bradda Lithium specific disclosures. With that, I'll hand it over to you, Charles and Ian. Please take it away.
Well, thank you very much for that, and thank you for the introduction. I'm Charlie Fitzroy, I'm the CEO of Bradda Lithium, and today we're going to talk about Bradda and our exciting projects and what's planned for the year ahead. As mentioned, we'll be talking about some forward-looking statements here. So, Bradda the company we listed back in July 21. Since then, we've been very busy at our projects in Arizona and Nevada. Important to note is that we have 3 types of lithium deposits. We have brine assets up in Nevada, our Eureka and Wilson project. We have our clay projects in Arizona, Wiki up in Basin, and then we have our pegmatite district in in Arizona too, called San Domingo. All these projects are 100% owned by Bradda, and as of the end of March, we had just under $7 million US in treasury, with another $5.5 million to come from a royalty transaction on the clay projects. The brines and the pegmatites do not have royalties, only just the clay projects. So that $5.5 million will come from resource expansion at our clay projects, where we are drilling currently, and we foresee potentially we might be able to hit that target this year, and that's the plan. That's what we're trying to target. So, fantastically located projects within the US, 100% owned, and unique in the fact that we have 3 types of lithium deposits, and that's what makes us so particular in our space. Very well supported by board and management. Board and management own about 20% of the company, and there's some very supportive shareholders, as you can see on the register there, about 390 million shares in issue. And as I said, location. Bradda is in the US, where the US supply chain is really building out, and that's where we're located in Arizona, Arizona is the largest US state for mining revenue. ESG very much front and center for Bradda because that is vital for any projects in the US. Social license to operate. We need to get our projects, we need to get our permits. It's key for us to engage with the local communities and make sure we're building good relationships for the long term. Geological risk, again, Bradda has 3 types of lithium deposits, and that's what splits us out from our peers. And infrastructure. It couldn't get much better than where we are in Arizona and Nevada for infrastructure. And politically exceptionally stable. Fraser Institute surveys ranked us in the top 5 repeatedly. So Arizona and Nevada, fantastic places to be developing projects in. So, okay, the team behind the story. So myself, I'm the CEO of Bradda. My name is Charlie Fitzroy. I'm a geologist by background. I spent some time in the British Army before working within metals and mining and M&A, equity research, asset management, and also corporate development most recently. Ian's on the call here. I think Ian should probably introduce himself.
And just very quickly, Charlie, thanks. I've been involved in the mining industry for some significant time. Actually 50 years is a significant time, and have been in the lithium side of the business since about 2018. So I was involved in the first wave and then the second wave, and I'm sure the third wave that's coming as a result of the pickup in the lithium carbonate prices. So I've certainly got that experience both in corporate and process side of things.
Yeah, and as Ian said, lithium price looks like it's on the way up, which is fantastic for us. Talking about the lithium price, Don Haynes, one of our technical advisors, has been in lithium world for many years. Very fantastic experience with a very good technical team. So Don and Yatendra are our processing technical experts, and then Adam Hawkins, our ESG consultant. And also Jim Mellon should be noted. Jim Mellon's our largest shareholder. Bradda helped found the company back in 2016. And most recently, the newest name there is Joe Wilkins, who's our COO, based in Arizona. He's really been helping us push things forwards aggressively in Arizona. He's based down there. He's got a fantastic experience within the mining world. So Basin and San Domingo are going to be the key topics for today's presentation. Basin is our clay project, which we have a resource currently where we are drilling. As you can see on the right-hand side of the screen there, very low discovery costs. So you look at lithium in the Western world between 2012 and 2021 average, about $19 a ton so that's $19 to get a ton of lithium carbonate equivalent. Only costs us $11 a ton, so it's very low discovery cost. And then San Domingo, which is our pegmatite district, just down the road from Basin, only about an hour up the road from Phoenix. We have finished our first drill program recently, put our last set of assays out from that very recently, and also some soil sampling, which we'll go through a bit later. But again, both these projects, important thing to note is both of them are located near existing mines or have historic mines on their projects. So again, not greenfield assets, brownfield assets. Bradda is developing its project in the US for the US market. As you see from the chart on the right, most lithium is mined in either pegmatite mines in Australia or brines in South America, then sent to China to be processed and then sent on. Again, that requires a carbon footprint being picked up along the way. And also the energy mix going to a lot of those processes in China and also transport from Australia are largely diesel related. And so Bradda will be developing its projects in the US for the US market, cutting out that transport link, thus removing quite a large carbon footprint. Because at some point, we are going to have a market which is priced, low carbon footprint is priced at a premium. So Bradda, the bottom corner of that chart on the left-hand side, capital carbon intensity, and that's what we're developing our projects towards, that area of low carbon footprint as possible. So the projects, San Domingo, this is our pegmatite district in Arizona, 23 square kilometers. You can see on the map there are 6 pegmatites named there. So these are mined back in the 40s and 50s for the defense industry. These are mined for spodumene. And on average, the grade, I think, from those 6 mines was about 2.75% Li2O. So then, a very favorable grade. So that is really setting the scene for what we have here. That's where the guys came back in 2016 to find these projects because of that. And that's also what led our first drill program around the known pegmatites mined. You can see on the map also, we've got green outcrops of which are obviously not green surface, they're green, showing the pegmatite outcrops. And there's about 1,500 pegmatites identified from SK's mapping program. So we've got a 23 square kilometer district, 9 kilometers strike from that top portion, and 1,500 outcrops of pegmatites. You'll see on the bottom left of the screen there, that is the best intercept from our drill program recently. So 32 meters, 1.6% Li2O. To put that in context, a lot of the projects and in Australia, average resource grade between 1 and 1.4, 1.6%, cutoff grade about 0.5%. So it's a very good intercept. And the most important thing to note is of this first 7,000 meter program, about 60% of the holes hit some sort of mineralization. So we've got a really good opportunity here to develop something quite sizable. And you look on the bottom of the screen there, comparable assets, Kathleen Valley and also Bald Hill. And recent research note, which our brokers in the UK put out by Pamela Gordon, looking at what we have, looking at the square area and assuming 100 meter depth, put an estimate in the research note of sort of what could be there, of close to 8 million tons of lithium carbonate equivalent. So there's a huge potential there. And that's their estimates. And to put that in context, Kathleen Valley have about 4 million tons, just over 4 million tons of LCE in their resource. So we've got a huge upside at San Domingo. And this next year is really going to build the story. You can see here the soil geochemistry profile, which we just released. You'll see the black dots on it are spodumene occurrences. And this is just recent occurrences. A lot of these obviously were historic, but we've actually started ground truthing the soil anomaly map recently because the soil has only come through and we're finding spodumene in places we didn't know it was. And that's important because it indicates that the zone we have from southwest to northeast is spodumene rich because its distance from pegmatite dictates where spodumene is in place. And that's really exciting from our first program. We're seeing the holes we drilled, really good intercepts of spodumene. 60% of the holes drilled so far have had spodumene intercepted. This page here is showing the drill locations of the first two programs. So you'll see some of the highlights. I noted before that 32 meters, 1.6% up in the north. We've had some really good other highlights too. But all this is showing that we've got spodumene close to surface in multiple locations across these two areas. These two areas are actually quite small. They only cover about 1% of the claim block. This map here, so this idealized cross section, is trying to put across potentially what we might have. Obviously, it's not to scale, and it's obviously not showing the whole trend, but it's showing what we have at surface, the drill holes, and potentially what we could have below the surface. And this is what Kathleen Valley has similar. It has a deep feeder systems at depth and small showings at surface. And that's what we think we have at San Domingo. And this next program, which we are now building up data for, so we've got the soil geochemistry, the drilling data, and we're just completing a structural mapping program. All this is feeding into prioritizing our targets for the next program, which is going to cover areas like Morning Star. So you'll see on the slide here, Morning Star is southwest of our claim block at San Domingo. And it was drilled back in the 40s and 50s. We don't have the assays, but we can see from the geological data, which is very solid, that spodumene-bearing pegmatites are intercepted by these drill holes and continue at depth. So we know, in theory, when we start drilling there later this year, that at this target, we are going to hit spodumene. And that's a great thing to know before we start drilling there, because you can see on this map, we've got a huge amount of targets identified from the soil geochem, from the structural mapping, and this is what's going to form the basis of our 10,000 meter program, which is going to start as soon as we can. We've got drilling permits already at our federal land, which is the vast majority of the permits at San Domingo. Two state leases, which are in the process of permitting now, where Morning Star sits. Let's see, can I just write and draw something here? So yeah, so Morning Star is down here, and where I just showed you the map before, this is our phase 2 drilling where we've drilled already, and this is phase 1 up here when we've drilled previously. So the whole 9-kilometer trend, we are seeing a mineralization of spodumene-bearing pegmatites along it. As I said, we've got 1,500 outcrops at surface. So we're very excited about getting going, and all this is going to be pushing towards a resource as soon as we can. So this year is going to be really telling for San Domingo. A lot to come from the company, and really quite exciting. And as you look from that research report put out recently, huge upside. I would take a look at it if you can. But we have to talk also about, we should mention our next project we should be focusing on is part of our 46 square kilometer series of clay claims in Arizona. So we've got our Basin project, which is just down here in the bottom right of the screen, and our WikiUp project here. So Basin, it sits next to Freeport's Baghdad copper mine, which has been in operation for 100 odd years. And also on the bottom edge of Basin, we have a specialty clay mine. So again, it's an existing mining area. Basin is a 17 square kilometer project, which I'll go on to just now, which covers a variety of claims, federal and state. So far to date, all our drilling has been on the state section down here. So we've done 3 programs down at Basin East. We expanded the resource. The first program got 185,000 tons of LC. We're currently at 370,000 tons of LC. And that covers only about 1.4 square kilometers of the 17 square kilometers. So where we're drilling now, we'll soon be drilling near to 4 square kilometers. So you can imagine the resource expansion potential. And we are currently drilling on Basin East extension and also Basin North. And we've released 5 holes. Just to get rid of that, you'll see those 5 holes there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And what we're seeing so far is the clay thickening to the northwest and the north, as we thought it would, but we are now confirmed that's thickened. So far, the upper clay unit, which is the higher grade unit at Basin, we see it thickening to about 70 odd meters to the northwest, where previously it was only 30 meters in Basin East. So we're going to see some resource expansion from that alone. And we're very excited about getting some more results to the market as soon as we can, the assays and then further drill hole data. So you'll see on this map here, that's what I was talking about, these 5 drill holes. This hole 5 is the first drill hole we have actually done to the north of the creek. And that's important because there's a fault running through here, and we do not know what we're going to hit the other side of that creek. We thought we were going to get some really good interceptions. What we saw was actually better than we can imagine. What we saw was a complete preserved sequence of the upper clay unit, which is the green, and the lower clay, which is the blue, preserved by a basalt top. So that really is giving us encouragement because, one, the upper clay unit is thickened to about 70 meters from 30 odd meters, and two, it's a complete preserved sequence. And that gives us real excitement about the rest of the holes at Basin East Extension and Basin North. And we're chasing that royalty payment. So when we get to 1 million tons of LC, we get another $2.5 million. When we get to 2.5 million tons of LC, we get another $3 million. So again, the drilling pays for itself. So we're very incentivized to expand our resources as much as possible. So talked about our pegmatites, we've talked about our clay projects, and now moving on to our brines. Our brines up in Nevada, we've got Wilson and Eureka. Both we have found lithium in the clays at surface, and we've done magnetotellurics and also gravity surveys at both the projects. Wilson, we can see potentially a clay signature and then a brine signature below it. You'll see just down here, there's a brine signature. And then Eureka, we've got a brine reservoir there. Both at varying depths, but they're showing very positive signatures on the MT surveys. Obviously, we have not drilled them yet. And at the moment, because of where we are in the market, we're conserving all our funds for Basin and San Domingo, focusing on those two projects because they are located pretty close to Wickenburg. It enables us to keep a lean team and be located in one unit. The projects up in Nevada, we are in discussions with parties about potential to work together on a JV potential with these projects. So we do want to develop them. We're just conserving our funds at the moment because we want to make sure we're putting as much money in the ground in the places where we're going to see the quickest return. And that's what we believe at San Domingo and Basin, we're going to get the best return. We've got a busy year ahead. A lot of catalysts to come. So Basin, we're currently drilling at Basin East and Extension and Basin North. We've just finished a drill program at San Domingo. So we've got a lot of results to come from San Domingo, more analysis, and then drill program starting later this year as soon as we can. Basin East Extension and Basin North, we expect to get a resource through in Q3 of this year. And at the same time as that, we are permitting for our Basin West and West Extension claims. So that sits next to Basin East Extension and Basin North. That's 11 square kilometers. So when we start drilling those early next year, there'll be huge resource expansion potential there as well. So a lot going on with the company, a lot to come from Basin and also San Domingo. And again, really fantastic opportunity to invest in this company. And as I said before, ESG is very much front and center for Bradda. It's something which we've done early on. We engaged an ESG professional, I think, shortly after we listed back in 2021. It's the most vital thing in the US, engaging with the local communities and the local tribes, because we're putting these projects together for the long term. And so we've been very much engaging, and it's been showing. We've been getting our permits, and some of the permitting officials have been talking to us about gold standard company for permitting in Arizona. And we've got a community website which we put together last year, which enables us to talk to them, let them understand what we're up to, and let them give us feedback. And we're coming close to finalizing our water conservation initiatives around our Basin Wiki Up project, which will help us to conserve as much water as possible and work for the local community to help them conserve water, because water is obviously the primary issue in Arizona, which is something which we are very aware of. That's something we do as much as possible. For example, the drill program which we're doing right now, it's a sonic drill program, which uses about a third less water than RC or core drilling. So we are very aware of that, and we try to do as much as possible to conserve water where we can. So that's it in Bradda Head. We got 23 square kilometers of pegmatites, 46 square kilometers of clays, 25 square kilometers of brines, located in Arizona and Nevada in the US battery supply chain growing hub. Well funded, very exciting projects, a lot of news flow events for this year ahead, and just fantastic group of people to be working with. I think the company's got a very strong team, really understand how to return value to shareholders. I think, Ian, do you want to add something? I think it's a lot to come from this company.
No, indeed, Charlie. I think you've covered by far the bulk of it. I just would like to remind people who are listening in that we see our primary target at this moment in time to be the pegmatites, i.e. the spodumene-bearing pegmatites at San Domingo. We are pushing on, and we expect to be drilling in the second half of this year back in there, the 10,000 meters you comment upon. and we're obviously looking to bring that into a resource statement. We already have indications of the sort of general structure and outline of two particular areas, the San Domingo Midnight Oil area, where we've drilled quite a bit in the first program and in the central, but where we've got the Sunrise, we've got a significant step out. So look, I think the real opportunity here is that if we can prove up anywhere near that number that has been suggested by our friends Palmier Gordon, quite independently from us, and then really it's clear that this is as good a project as you're going to find anywhere in the world, and the fact it's located in the US just gives it that added advantage. So really, we are hungry to go, we're funded to go, and we're ready to go. So it's a business. The clays will look after themselves. So Alina, I think that's us. I think we're finished our bit.
Okay, thanks a lot. That was a great presentation, Charlie and Ian. So just as a reminder to our participants, you can type your questions into the chat box at any time. So we do have a couple of questions. Let's start with San Domingo first. Charlie, how deep were the holes at San Domingo?
We've done a range of depths. The majority have been very shallow. I think the majority have been 300 feet, upwards 300 feet. We've done a few deep ones, but we've got that 32 meters at 1.6% intercept. That was 25 meters below surface. So we've had some really, really good showings, quite shallow. And that's the key thing. But the next program is going to help us expand upon those shallow showings and also trying to help us understand what's at depth too. So right now, really quite a positive from shallow depth. For example, Palmier Gordon, as Ian's mentioned, their estimates coming off, assuming 100 meters depth. So, if we start getting bigger intersections at depth, you can imagine that number's going to rise.
Right.
And I suppose, Alina, we should apologise for mixing the feet with meters when we do our response. The Americans do confuse us, I must admit. But the initial results we've got are sensible, shallow targets that have the opportunity of open pitting in terms of getting them to a mine process plant. But we're really, remember this first program, 60% hit mineralization in terms of the number of holes that were drilled, but it is really just a first pass. The thing that's significant, I think, for again, just to remind everyone there that the idea behind us was to go to what's already disturbed ground. These are existing or old existing mines, if you like, and therefore the permitting was that little bit simpler, because we hopefully will return at the end of the day the ground to be more as per its original definition than what it is at this moment in time. So we get a lot of encouragement from that. And we have the opportunity, by the way, just in passing, of our own water source. So we're not short of water. It's something we've got in Arizona, and it is something we are obviously aware of because it's an issue that will come up as we move forward into our drilling program. But look, the shallowness of it, and just trying to understand the structures, because when we put the holes in, it was best guesstimate. Now we're beyond that. We're probably got a little bit of science behind it, which is a bonus.
Right. Right. So, Charlie, you talked about Morningstar. Are there any other targets you can tell us about that you're going to test with phase 3?
We are developing a lot more targets. Morningstar is one we mentioned because we have some historic drilling, not the assays. And the historic drilling is very positive. It shows spodumene-bearing pegmatites at good depth and open at depth. And importantly, it's on strike from our lower jumbo and jumbo targets. We've had some really good results too. So that's about 1.5 kilometers distance. We've got a lot of other targets coming up, literally along the whole trend from southwest and northeast. Hotspots. From that map I showed in the presentation, it really shows a nice trend of all the targets. And that's what we're doing now. We're ground truthing those soil anomalies and finding spodumene all over the place. And with the structural mapping, it's really prioritizing where we're going to drill next. And we are going to be releasing those priority targets in the not too distant future. We just need to, we're coming to the end of that structural mapping program. So it's a bit too premature for me to put all the targets out there. But you can see from that map, the areas where we are looking right now to drill. We're going to be starting as soon as we can. And
Alina, again, just to confirm, what work we've done is making us feel more and more confident that we do have that 9 kilometer strike trend running northeast to southwest. So we are we're feeling bullish about it. So there's more than 3 targets. It just so happens that in those 3 targets, we've got a decent bit of information. We've got some good intersections, not just the 30 odd meters, but we've also had 10 meters at sort of 1.6 and so on and so forth. So they were healthy looking numbers. And naturally we would tend to go back there just because of the information, but there's a strike length of 9 kilometers close to surface targets, and we will be generating more as we go. But we're not there to drill forever. We're there to generate a resource.
Right. So just a question here. Is there a risk to the economic viability of mining San Domingo if a feeder system isn't identified?
There is a risk, yes. We would prefer to have a deeper feeder zone, but at the moment we think there's sufficient, based on the numbers we've seen. And remember, we can only quote what we can't arm wave and gesticulate and suggest numbers, but we can quote Panmure Gordon. So they're saying down to the 100 meters, that is above any feeder zone, there is the potential for 7.7 million tons of lithium carbonate equivalent. My Lord, is that a big number. So even if they're only 25% correct, then we're off to the races. So I'm less concerned. I think economically on surface there is enough opportunity, but hey, we're off. It'd be a wonderful thing to get the deeper system, and we'll, at the right time, we'll go looking for that. We're not having to chase it to this moment in time.
So Ian, you'd mentioned, getting San Domingo to a resource. But what about after that? Is this something that, Bradda Head would look to develop itself, or would they think about selling San Domingo?
The word sell is a strange word to use at this moment in time. We've really got to understand just what kind of value this company is worth. But what we can tell you is that we've already taken some samples of the spodumene that we have encountered. That's going to a laboratory, a well-known international laboratory, to do some test work for us, and we can be able to report what kind of performance we get from that test work. And based on what we expect, but we never know until the results come in, then there's a simple opportunity of building a treatment plant there to generate a spodumene concentrate, which is of course the simplest of them all. So right now we're focusing on unlocking the value of this opportunity. And then we'll think later on. We're far too cheap to be thinking of selling at this moment in time.
Okay, well, you just answered my next question about network, so that's good.
Okay.
So if you did end up taking this to production, what kind of timeline would you be looking at?
Well, look, if we get a resource anywhere near a number that makes sense by the end of this year, because remember, people talk about, in general terms, sort of 25,000 tons a year of lithium carbonate as being a pretty robust number. If we get anywhere near the opportunity of saying that's doable at the end of this year, and the test work proves up, you're not talking about major test work here. It really is to generate a feasibility study in sufficient data. It's maybe 2 or 3 months worth of network, but then yeah, we could be building, I think, it's just a rough guideline, no guarantees. We could be building certainly by 2025, and it's not a big operation to build a treatment plant, so it's relatively near term, Alina. That's what's nice about it. It's the size, the grade, and the near-term opportunity to convert a little junior into a production unit.
Okay. All right. So let's move over to basin. So Charlie, during your presentation, you mentioned that the clay unit thickens towards the northwest. So what are your plans here? Do you have permits to drill like the northern part of those claims?
So yeah, we've got permission to drill Basin East extension and also a portion of Basin North. And the important thing to note about the upper clay unit, so in Basin we have an upper clay unit and a lower clay unit. The lower clay unit is lower grade, upper clay unit is much higher grade. And with that upper clay unit thickening to the northwest, we're seeing the lower clay unit thin. So that's very important for the the overall grade of the project and the resource expansion potential. So in short answer, yes, we do. But with Basin West and West Extension, which is to the west, we're doing a plan of operations study now. So that wider resource expansion potential to the west, we will get permits through early next year. But we're currently drilling to the northwest. We can't drill to the very top of Basin North because that is involved in plan of operations, but we have a sort of bottom half of it, we've got permission to drill, which will definitely enable us to expand our current resource to, we believe, over that 1 million ton mark of LCE.
So, Alina, we have got permission already for X number of holes, which we believe will step out sufficiently into that Basin North extension area, and that's the expansion that Charlie expects to have by the latter part of this year.
Yeah, we're pushing for a resource in Q3 for Basin.
Okay, so I guess, Charlie, you answered the question that someone had here, but the question was, could we potentially expect a 1 million ton resource at Basin after the current drill program?
That's what we're aiming for, and indications at the moment definitely pointing towards that. We can't confirm it right now, but that is the way it's going. It's looking very promising, very positive.
Okay. So, we've talked a bit about market conditions and, what valuations are like in this environment. So just wondering, why not focus on San Domingo given the higher multiples that pegmatite projects are fetching compared to, clay projects at this point in time?
Well, I think that question's answered very much with the royalty. We have a royalty in our clay projects, and we get paid back for the drilling work we're doing there. And also the funds from that royalty can only be used on the clay projects. So, and for us, it's relatively straightforward geology. We've got looks like a sedimentary deposit where we can do quite wide drill spacing. And we are expanding that resource. And whilst clay projects are not currently, there's not very many, there's not any really commercial production, it is perceived as a long-term strategy and a long-term operation. People will be interested in it, and that's why we're doing the clay project, because it is exciting.
But to answer your question, Alina, the primary target is the pegmatites and the spodumene-bearing mineralization we're seeing at San Domingo. That's where the bulk of our attention is. The clay is a slowly catch the monkey type operation, which is useful for us because at some stage there's going to be a significant amount of lithium and clay inventory there, and somebody will like that.
Right. Okay. So last question here, gentlemen. Could you just provide a summary of the upcoming catalysts in, let's say, the next 6 to 12 months?
Well, we've got the finalization and the ongoing assays from our Basin project now, and the resource update out in Q3. San Domingo, we've got the results from the mapping work we've done now, the drill targeting, and then the drill program starting second half of the year, and then the results from that. We are pushing towards and targeting a resource as soon as we can. So a huge amount happening at the company. I think this year's going to be very busy. We've just finished our first drill program at San Domingo earlier this year. We started one at Basin, so we've got results coming from Basin whilst we're planning the San Domingo one. So we're going to have a lot of news flow coming for this year.
I think the key, Alina, is we are not going to be standing around spinning our wheels. We are there to get moving, particularly in San Domingo, and we will be drilling there as soon as practically possible. The first drill program we did, of course, is the first drill program there since the 1940s and 50s, if you like. So it's getting close to 70 years ago. So we can see the opportunity. We've got to make sure that the investors who are listening and the would-be interested parties understand the same vision as we've got. San Domingo is a key target area. Push it as quickly as we can. It's in the States. If we have anything like a sensible resource towards the end of this year, early next year, then you can bet your bottom dollar the guys are going to be crawling all over us. Absolutely no doubt. So get in now while there's a chance.
Yeah, well, it is a very exciting story and a lot to look forward to for the rest of the year. So Ian and Charlie, thank you so much for taking time to host this webinar with us today. Just as a reminder for our audience, our next webinar will feature consolidated uranium, and that's tomorrow, May 16th at 2 p.m. Eastern. Thanks for tuning in with us, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.